Okay, in this lesson we are going to start talking about simplifying expressions that have variables in them. So far, in lesson 2A and 2B, we talked about how to simplify expressions that have only numbers. And when there's only numbers there, we had to use the order of operations in order to get the correct simplified expression, which always boiled down to a single number. This is not the case when we're working with expressions that have a variable in them. So what I want you to notice is that in this lesson we have a new vocabulary word, and the word is term. And so that's what I've put right here. It says, what is a term? Okay, so what you're going to learn is that a mathematical expression can have one part or it can have several parts, and each part is called a term. And a term can be a number or a product of number and variables. And we learned in the last chapter that product means the answer to a multiplication problem. So when you multiply numbers and variables, that can be a term. Okay, so I'm going to give you some examples of terms. We have one type of term that's called a constant. Okay, so right here we have an example. The number 7 is what we call a constant term, and the value of it is positive. So if you don't see any sign in front of the 7, you can consider it to be a positive 7, and the value of that term is constantly 7. It's never going to have any other value. Okay? The other type of term that we have is called a variable term. So a variable term always has a number multiplied by a letter, and that letter we call a variable. So in this example, we have -8 times y, and y is the variable. The value of this term, like I said, is negative, and whenever it's negative, you're always going to see this negative sign here in front of the number. The other kind of variable term is going to be the kind that you don't see any number in front of the variable. So if you just see x, x is a variable term, okay? What you have to realize, though, when there's just an x there, is that it actually has a number being multiplied by it, and that number is 1. And we learned in one of the last lessons that when you take 1 times x, the value of that is still x. So it's not necessary to write the 1 in front of the x. But you also need to realize that that is a positive 1x. Okay? So let's take a look at this expression, the expression 4x plus 2. Now we learned that the correct way to say that is 4 times x plus 2. And we have two terms here. The term 4 times x is sitting next to the term positive 2. So now instead of saying plus 2, I'm calling that term a positive 2 term. Okay? Since there is no sign in the 4x term, we can assume that it is a positive term, and we can write it as positive 4x if we need to. In the lesson itself, I posted an example that I would like you to read through, but right now I've actually gone into the link of the assignment, and I'm going to show you how I want you to do this work. Okay, so what it says here is that for numbers 6 through 10, for each expression, you need to do 3 things. A, put each term into its own box. You may have more boxes than you need. B, tell me the number of terms in each expression. And C, you have to color code each term. A constant term must be red, a variable term must be blue, and I'm going to show you how to change the colors of your terms. Okay, so for the first example I'm going to show you how to do. Here's our expression. It says 8 times x plus 2 minus 3 minus 5x. What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to say, okay, the first term I see here is an 8x. So you're going to come over here and you're going to type in 8x. And actually when you do it, it should be coming up black. Okay, then you're going to come over and you say, okay, the next thing I see is a positive 2. Okay, so you're going to put in a positive 2. Then you're going to say, okay, the next thing I see is a negative 3. All right, negative 3. And the last term I see is a negative 5x. Now, this might seem a little bit confusing because when I just read the expression, I said 8x plus 2. And now I'm calling it a positive 8x and a positive 2. So you're going to have to start seeing things a little bit differently. This is not only a plus sign, but it is also a positive sign. And this is not only a minus sign, it is also a negative 3. Okay, so that's a big jump to start seeing things this way. Now, the next thing you say is you say, how many boxes did I fill in? I filled in 4 boxes. So you're going to come over here and you're going to say the number of terms is 4. Okay? Then for part C, you have to color code each term. So the constant terms are going to be red. Well, constant means that that box is always going to be a positive 2. There's no variable in a constant term. So I'm going to come up here to the A. That's not going to be shown. Okay. I'm going to grab the color, and it just applied a red there. Then I'm going to actually just highlight all this and bold it. Okay. Then the negative 3 is also constant. So I'm going to come up, I'm going to grab the A, drop it down, and pick the color red. Okay. Now, the 8x has a variable in it. So that's a variable term. I'm going to come up to my A, my text color. I'm going to make it blue. I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to make this one blue because they have a variable in them. And that's all you have to do. That's all 3 parts. Okay, so you're going to do that on 6 through 10. Don't forget to answer the questions up above this in the lesson.